Hellfire and the Fall of Empire by Jim Webster. This is a solo miniature wargaming campaign, but because the combat rules are written for latter half of the 20th century technology, I don't have a whole lot of figures in that scale, so I may just do pen and paper as I did for the Hides Reach campaign. The actual campaign kicks off in the year 2943, and it's a fascinating campaign because it does things very different. Instead of having two roughly evenly matched empires or countries or barons or cave tribes, you take the role of a planetary governor who controls 10 cities, that's all you got, on a planet surrounded by barbarian tribes that just don't want to be part of the empire. You're trying to build up, and oh my goodness, political shenanigans happen back at the seat of power. We're just on the outskirts of the empire, and things are starting to fall apart back there. It's getting pretty bad out there. And as a result, the empire starts pulling its troops, and it starts pulling all of its politically connected people off the planet, and it leaves you, as the player, scrambling to hold things together as the vultures begin circling, and those barbarian tribes with which you share the planet start to realize you're a much easier target than you used to be. The good news is the barbarian tribes don't like each other any more than they like you, so you can kind of play them off each other, maybe, depending on how things go. In our last episode, we sat down and we designed a little world. We threw some cards down. We used the suggestions by Jim, and I went ahead and I made up this lovely little map. Look at that. So this is what our Decapolis looks like. If you get a copy of these rules off of Amazon or whatever fine PDF merchant you like to frequent, your campaign will look very different. In my case, I just left the 10 cities where they're at. I think they're named after the hills of Rome. But in my case, in the example scenario here, I think it was Scythopolis was the capital. My capital is Hippos. I've got 3 industrial cities: Scythopolis, Kanatha, and Dion. I've got a couple of artful cities. This is where my universities and my theater districts are: Damascus, Rafana, Gerasa. I've got Pella. I've got financial centers: Pella, Gadara, and Philadelphia. Oddly enough, the only political city I have is Hippos. My cities are a little bit bigger than the ones that Jim presents in his example. He had a total of 96. I have a total of 100. That's what the little numbers here in the parentheses are. I have hills. I threw a swamp out here just to kind of mix it up, and it works basically the same as the hills. And then we've got some mountain ranges here on the south. The idea is that if you are going to settle on a new planet, you find the choicest territory you can, the richest, luscious ground that you can, and that's what's going on here. This little valley between, there's a couple of large rivers, and then I threw a couple of smaller rivers in too, just for giggles. And these big rivers drain like the whole interior where the barbarians live. That's why they're so big, whereas these little ones just kind of keep things well moisturized, well hydrated, because there's a lot of farms in here. And because this area is several hundred years old, it's pretty well developed. So, the map that I've got here, and in fact, I'm going to show you the close-up maps, and we'll start with Hippos itself. I went ahead, and you don't need to do this, it's all fairly abstract, but I went ahead and did a little blow-up here, where on this map, 1 inch equals 30 miles. On this map, 1 inch equals 10 miles. And so you can see that I even added in a little bit more detail here in the fine areas. There's a little minor port up here that might be useful. A little sentinel peak, and again, you don't really need that, but it does show the relationship between Hippos and Scythopolis. I did put my starport right here on the outskirts of Hippos, on the coastline here. There's probably a coast road that links Hippos with Gadara. And of course, these are where all the bridges are. Even threw some bridges in there so you can see that. And that may come into play later. Scythopolis is right here on the border. So as the barbarians come in, there's more industry over here. I probably should have put the industry sign. Not necessary. So I have, and that's what these boxes are here. I have 6 maps showing kind of a close-up detail look. But as I said, the campaign itself is fairly abstract. as we'll see shortly. Now, there's a number of things that you have to track, and I think the information tracking on this campaign might get to be a bit of a challenge, but Challenge is my middle name. It's my other middle name. My middle names are Danger, Wargaming, and Challenge. It's John Danger, Wargaming, Challenge, Mollison. Yeah, that was my last name. So let's take a look at what our itinerary is for today. And the fun thing about this is it's so abstract that your turn. All right, we got to talk a little bit about the calendar, okay? The calendar on the planet of Decapolis is a 12-month calendar, but we're going to ignore December and January. The weather's terrible. We're in a temperate region. Nobody does anything during those 2 months, okay? It's the holiday season. Everything shuts down. We only worry about 10 months. 10, the decimal system, keeps things simpler for us, at least for all of this tracking. We're going to do things year by year, and then once we kind of get into the hot and heavy where the barbarians are swarming after us, then we're going to kind of zoom in and look at things more on a monthly basis. So really, it's like there's 1 month rounds with 1 year turns. And we could talk a little bit about what our military capabilities are to start with. Now, the Kaizen Empire, there's exports, there's imports. We're kind of the hip, trendy, kind of, the new kids on the block kind of thing. So they do want to protect their investment, and they have made available to us 2 mechanized infantry battalions, 1 tube artillery battalion, or support and recovery battalion, and a light air support. We're the only guys with planes right now. We start the campaign with an electronic countermeasures company, counter battery, missile radar, and then we have a field medical company, an engineer battalion, and an aircraft squadron with 3 planes. The good news is these guys are going to stick with us through thick and thin. They're locals. The bad news is these are the guys that when the Empire says, hey, the Persians are getting uppity down here, they might call these guys home. The longer they stick around, the more likely it is individual companies of these battalions will stay. They'll say, no, I've raised my kid here. I've lived here 25 years. I ain't going back to space Rome. I'm hanging out right here in Decapolis. And maybe, we're into the 3rd, 4th generation. Maybe some of these guys signed up. They joined the regular military, and now they're out. They're out of the Kaizen. Their primary allegiance is not to the Union, it's to Space Virginia, if you will. Looking back at the population numbers here, that is the population, that's the income. Hippos produces 200 credits a month per population point. That means they're producing 2,400 credits a month. A year, I should say. It's 100 times 2. No, yeah, that's right. It's 200 credits per month. Okay, there's 100 population points, 200,000 credits every year, and that's what these numbers are here. The regulars cost us 155, and then our locals, the whole thing cost us 155. So if we didn't spend any money in this first year of the campaign, we would be able to we would clear 45,000 credits. But of course, we have a little breathing room here at the start of the campaign to build up our numbers of locals, and we can draw on these population points. We can start pulling companies out, right? And so if we want to use an expeditionary company, and that's the thing, half of these are militia. They're not going to go anywhere. They're just kind of the stay-at-homes, the National Guard. They do their 2 weeks a year, 1 weekend a month to do some training. They don't get the best equipment, but they're fiercely loyal. And then the other half, we can actually recruit those guys into our own standing army, which I guess would be based out of Hippos. Again, bear in mind, this whole thing at 1 inch equals 30 miles. Where am I fancy? Here we go. Let's take a look at how big this empire is. Oh my goodness, right? At 30 times 8, it's only about 200 miles across and about 100 miles deep. So we're going to be able to get to wherever we need to get to. And the other big assumption, military speaking, the other big assumption is that when we generate our barbarian horde invasions, we have really good intel on that. The idea is that we have the agents of the Imperium out here scouting, spying. We control some mountains. Maybe there's some watchtowers. So we'll have a good idea when those attacks come. We can plan for that. We don't have to worry so much about tracking, oh, well, this army can only move 30 miles a day, and this army can move 25 miles a day, and can they get across the river? How long does it take? You're not going to worry about that, okay? It's really more about, that's like beneath us as the ruler of this empire. So that's something to be aware of. All right, so where does that put us today? Well, it puts us at the start of the campaign, and there's a lot of little check boxes that you have to go down. In the first year of the campaign, right? Well, let me just show you what I did to make this a little easier on us for these first couple of years. And today we're going to play through the first couple of years, talk about what decisions we can make to help us out later on, and the strategy that I'm going to take to try to preserve this until the Empire returns, or until I get strong enough that I can just conquer the whole world. Because that's a possible ending of this. That this becomes what would you call it? Call it the Britannia that inherits the mantle of empire, and 1,000 years later rises to conquer the earth the way the Kaizans once did. It's the British Isles to the Roman Empire, if you will. Starting in the year 2943, it's the first year of the campaign. Every year from now on, roll a d6. On a 1 or 2, the Empire withdraws a unit from the Decapolis Brigade. Remember, that's the really good guys. These are the guys that have the technological edge. And if we looked at this in a little more detail, I figured this could wait, but I guess now is as good a time as any. I explained that they have energy weapons, they have grav APCs, grav armor. These guys are really good. They've got a company of armored personnel carriers and a company of tanks, grav tanks. Well, what does that mean in this context? Not much. I think it means that they can skate across the swamps if need be. They're fast. They have a technical edge, so they're going to be more likely to win the battle. And remember, this campaign is meant to generate tabletop miniature wargaming battles. So it'll be a lot more important when you actually start throwing miniatures on the table. All right, so that's the first thing. Then, every year from now on, starting in 2945, roll a d6. On a 1 or a 2, they withdraw Imperial naval units. That's a trigger. It changes the nature of the game because suddenly, oh, wait a minute. Like right now in the first year, if these natives start to get restless, we can just orbital strike them. Oh no, you don't. Okay, but we won't have that option once the Navy leaves. The thing with these Jim Webster books is he kind of throws things in as he thinks of them. Very Gygaxian. I mean that as a compliment, but it does make things a little more complicated to remember, and that's why I just wrote them down, right? So what we do in the first year is we check for Imperial withdrawal. Do they withdraw a unit? And it's a random unit. Then we check to see if the governor survives. There's a 5% chance he dies. If he dies, there's a 1 in 6 chance that a usurper shows up. Succession wasn't fully established. We now have a civil war to deal with as the barbarians come in. It's going to make it a lot harder to win this campaign. We also need to figure out whether the barbarians show up. There's a chance 1 or 2 of them shows up even in this first year when we are at the tippy top height of our strength. Okay? Then we do the economic stuff, right? We make 200 kilocredits. We spend 155. That leaves us 45 left over. Now, I'm going to start, instead of raising new units, I'm going to trust my militia, at least at the outset, because I want to maintain that technological edge. Given that I have a limited number of people, I want that edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dump $20,000 into developing energy weapons. What happens is, every year that you spend that $20,000, you roll a d6. And when you get to a total of 10, and you keep adding. So it's probably going to take, it could take as few as 2 years, could take as many as 10 years. It's probably going to take 3 or 4 years. Then you have to spend another 10 grand so now you've like reverse engineered the grav armor. The Empire doesn't want these guys getting too big for their britches. So they say, no, our boys get grav armor, your boys don't. I'll let my boys fix it up, and that way I don't have to worry about Decapolis threatening the Empire itself. Once they pull out, though, and now that we realize that we're going to be on our own pretty soon, we can start doing this research, right? So that's going to leave us. That's all I'm doing, and that's going to be researched, by the way, in Kanatha. This is my industrial city, and that's important because if Kanatha falls, then we're going to lose that research. That leaves us with 25,000 kilocredits left over. We'll bank that at the end of the year. So that's all we have to do for this first year. Now, there are other random events that can occur. Each of the barbarian tribes has a possibility that their leader dies that year, and if he does, they're going to be dealing with their succession issues, and you don't have to worry about being attacked by that barbarian tribe. There are 10 of them. I'm not going to roll for all 10 tribes every year. Instead, what I'm going to do is when a tribe shows up, that's when I'll check to see if there's a, basically it's going to treat it like a saving throw. Oh, they showed up? Well, hold on. Let me roll and see if the leader died. The other interesting thing is once barbarians start showing up, I'm going to have to decide where they're coming from. Some of them might come from the swamp. And that's what these A, B, C, D, and all of that. That's where that comes from. Now, for the most part, they're not going to be able to come through the mountains. The mountains are too tall, but they will be able to come down the river valley. They may be able to come, this is plains. That's probably a really likely one. They may come through this river pass or over the mountains. But once a tribe comes from this direction, that tribe will always come from that direction. And once we hit like our 7th tribe, we're just going to stop. We've figured out which 7 tribes we have to worry about. I don't want to have to deal with all 10 for the entire campaign, so we'll just kind of declare kind of which direction they come from. They're pretty predictable. And I should point out, if you decide to play this campaign, your tribes will come from different areas. So you're going to have a unique Decapolis campaign, and maybe you decide you're an idiot for researching energy weapons before you have anybody that can use them. You should really be developing more units. But with all that said, let's go ahead and play out the first 2 years of this campaign, and I think that'll be enough for today. As I said, the first thing we do is we find out, do any of the Imperial units withdraw and get pulled back to defend the Imperial core? We roll a d6, and on a 1 or a 2, they do. They do not. So we have everybody. That's great. And let me write that down here. No. Now, does the governor die? I'm going to roll a d20, and on a 1, he does. Nope. So he survives, and that's good. We don't have to worry about civil war. Governor survives? Yes. Do we have a barbarian incursion? Because the Imperial Navy is still around keeping an eye on things, I roll a d6, I subtract 4. In other words, on a 5 or a 6, we're going to have 1 or 2 barbarians show up, respectively. I get a 1. No barbarians will show up. No. Okay, we like that. Now, for 2944, we just repeat that process. Do any of the Imperial units withdraw? Yes. Which one? It's going to be a random unit. Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. So I'm going to roll a d10. And on a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or a 4, it'll be one of these 2 mechanized infantry battalions. On a, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, let's see, 2, 4. On a 5 or a 6, it'll be the artillery, and so on. So on a 3, yep, the 33rd Mechanized Infantry Battalion is gone. So I'm just going to go ahead and cross them off. Now that will save us 2,000. I think we have to pay for them this year. But that will save us 2,000 credits next year. So I'll write that down as well. The 233rd is withdrawn. And oh, things are looking a little more scary. Does our governor survive? On a 17, he does. And then do we have a barbarian incursion? 2 minus 4 is less than 0. We do not. So the first question I have is, do we save 2,000 credits? Do I get that because they're withdrawn? Do I have to pay for them for the entire year? It's not clear to me from the rules. I don't have the advantage of having this 33rd Mechanized Infantry Battalion available, so I'm not going to pay them. They get called up, and maybe it's like in the 3rd or 4th month of the year, but either way, if I ain't got them, I ain't spending money on them. So what I'm going to do is say my Decapolis Brigade actually only cost me 142. Now I am still spending the 220,000 on research and in Kanatha. So that means my surplus here is going to be 27,000 and my reserve is going to be 52 grand. I probably should start replacing those guys. I'm going to hold off until next year to do that. I want to make sure I have a pretty big reserve because you can pay off the barbarians. More on that later. Now, I didn't roll the D6 in the first year because I knew I wasn't going to make it. Now that we're into the second year, there's a chance that my research occurs, that I've successfully researched it, and I'll be able to drop 10 grand next year. And oh, look at that. I've got, what am I researching? Energy weapons. Okay. So in the first year of the campaign, I do research and I get a 1. And in the second year, I do research and I get a 4. So I am at a total score of, no, my score is 5. So my first year wasn't so hot. My second year kind of was. And that's pretty much how we do the first couple of years. Preliminary, would have been great to have unlocked those energy weapons now, but it is what it is. I guess my guys didn't realize how much pressure there was until they saw half of those mechanized infantry battalions get on the ships and blast off for greener pastures. This does put us in the imperial year 2945 AD, Anno Domini. This pencil is a little bit light. Now we're into the year 2945 AD, and as you can see, every year from now on, roll a d6. On a 1 or a 2, the Empire withdraws all naval units, and that means bad things happen. There's a gradual drift of functionaries and local people who want to continue their imperial careers back in the core world. Each year, roll a d6 for each government city, and on a 1, it loses 1 point of population. In other words, all of the people capable of running civilization, my population of hippos might start going down. My income can go down. Now, I can raise taxes to make up the difference, but that comes with some severe penalties on its own. The people start to get angry when their taxes go up. They start to get restive. Restless? They start to get angry when their taxes go up. And so, if you're not a hate-filled monster running a country, you try to keep taxes as low as possible. And that's really the big change. Then it also has roll a d6 for each mercantile city. If you get a 1, you got to roll for them. Those guys too? Yeah, all the hip new kids take off. But on a 1 or a 2, imperial orders are regarded as polite requests. Look, if you're taking your navy, if you're taking protection, I don't have to owe you. I'm not paying you any more tribute. If you're not going to protect me, I'm not going to pay your taxes. Man, there's a lesson in there for my own country. Crazy, ain't it? All right, so let's go ahead and roll those dice. It's the same thing, right? Imperial withdrawal happens every year. Does one of the Imperial units leave on a 1 or a 2? Oh, they do. Oh, boy. Now, I only have 4 units remaining, so I will roll a d8. Infantry, artillery, support, and light air. I get an 8. Oh, we've lost our air cover. Oh, boy. So they go bye-bye, and they cost $2,000 a year. That means my military expenses, so we got Imperial withdrawal. Yep, air support gone. Air support equals gone. And that means our total military expenses will only be $150. Well, we got a little bit more money to play with anyway. And that means our surplus, after we remember we make 200, we spend 20, we get 30 more. Our reserve was at 52. Our reserve is now going to be at 82 kilocredits. The surplus is going to be a total of, if I don't raise any more units, which I'm still not, I still have that mechanized infantry battalion. So my income stays at, does it stay at 200? I got to roll some more dice. Does the governor survive? Don't get a 1. Yeah, he does. And then does the Navy leave on a 1 or a 2, did it say? Navy leaves on a 1. No, that's spare parts. Okay. On a 1 or a 2, they withdraw all Imperial naval units. 6, the Navy stays. Navy leaves? No. Okay, and that's important because I don't have to check for anything else. The governor survives, yes. And now do we have any barbarian incursions? And this is really the big one, man. Once the Navy leaves, then you get D6 barbarian incursions. They really start hammering you. So again, anything but a 5 or 6, I'm in good shape. I get a 2. I get no barbarians. This is good, man. They're giving me a little bit of time. Barbarians, no. And the last real die roll I have to make here is to see if I can get a 5 or a 6. And then I unlock energy weapons. No. Okay, so that's 5 plus 2 equals 7. I'm feeling good about next year. So 2946 AD. How you guys doing? You enjoying this? I know, listen, it's going to get a little more interesting here shortly. Let's do one more year. Should be pretty quick. Do any Imperial units withdraw? Yes, they do. I've only got 3 units left. I'm going to have to raise some of my own. On a 1 or a 2, the battalion goes. 3 or 4, 5 or a 6. So I get a 2, and that is it for the infantry. So all I have now are militia. I'm going to have to raise my own military units or trust to the dice that I don't get any barbarians until next year. That will save us another 2,000 kilocredits. The next thing we have to check is the governor survives. And by the way, after 10 years, you start rolling a D10. A few years later, you roll a D8 until you get that 1. And then finally, you have to worry about your line of succession. So we get a 4, our governor survives. Equals yes. Does the Navy leave here in the 4th year looking for a 1 or a 2? We get a 3. The Navy does not leave. No. And then do the barbarians show up? Again, we do not want a 1 or a 2. So 4 minus 4. Oh, actually, it's 4 minus 4 still. So still no barbarians. No. And then we look at our income. Oh, so the income here was 200 kilocredits. We spent 50, so we had a surplus of 50. And then that means our research continues at 20K, KR, and now we're looking for a 3 or better. We get a 4, that's 11, so we unlock energy weapons. And that, now we don't have them yet, because we got the 11, and that's at Kanatha, by the way. So if a barbarian tribe conquers Kanatha, they're going to steal our technology. We still need to spend 10K for that, but the question becomes, do we want to raise a mechanized infantry battalion all our own? And to figure that out, we have to look at the cost to raise a company. So here, a mechanized infantry company costs 1,500 credits. I think we do. So we're going to raise we're going to call this the Hippo First. The first Hippos. The Hippos First Mechanized Infantry. And now they are not grav infantry, okay? Unlike the guys that left, they are going to be, it's not ground effect vehicles, they're going to be wheeled and tracked. But otherwise, they're going to be pretty much the same. They're going to start off with, so what does it say here? It says, well, so we have ground. In fact, it's kind of like, do I have my own? I don't. Okay. It's going to be 3 companies of infantry with the supporting armor company, APC, and so that's okay. So let me rate that. That's going to be 3 companies, and they are going to. So here's where things get a little more complicated. And this is what I don't understand. I might have to pause until I can pick the brain of guys like Wargame Culture. Those 3 companies have to come from somewhere, and I think they come from the expeditionary companies. In other words, half of these guys, now, by the way, when it's an odd number, you round up. So Philadelphia here with a population of 11, they have 6 militia and 5 expeditionary. Do I need to make a note that Hippos, I'm going to pull 3 of these guys out to make the Hippo First? and I can only use 3 more of these for another expeditionary company. Is that the way this works? I'm not sure. Like there's no real guidance in here for it. See, and here it is, right? So Hippos, in his case, well, it's 12, right? So 6 and 6. Now I can do a little bit of what Donald Featherstone called domestic wargaming. The first Hippos, they're going to need some insignia. I can sit down and make up some lovely little costumes. I can decide what colors they wear. I can decide what their insignia is. And of course, because they're the Hippos, it'll be the Hippos. Oh my goodness, I just realized some of you are probably screaming at the screen, maybe even already dropped a comment in the section. That's okay. A mechanized infantry company costs $1,500 per company. If I want to raise a battalion, 3 mechanized infantry company, maybe a backing tank company, oh man, that's going to be a total of 4. That's going to be 9,000 credits. That's really expensive. And of course I want to try to replace these. So I'm actually going to have them with a reinforced by a company of armor. And that means the total cost for these guys, it's going to be 9,000 kilocredits. All right, well, it is what it is. My reserve is going to go down by, I already paid the 1,500. It's going to go down by another 7,500. So this 133.5 is going to drop down to 126.0. Yeah, so that's going to be 3 companies of infantry plus 1 company of armor and tracked armor, which is going to be, so that's 45 plus 45 for the armor. And man, that's expensive. And it gets even worse because if I understand this correctly, this mechanized infantry company, this is the monthly unit cost. To keep them in the field for a full year, I'm going to have to pay 15,000. Oh, well, 15 plus another 5 for the tank company. So that's that's only 2,000. Okay, that's 2,000. And then you multiply that by 10 to get to the, yeah. Okay, so we're okay. We're okay. But we started at 155. We've lost a total of 6,000 credits, and then we're back up 2, so we've lost 4. So it's actually going to be 151. All right, my apologies for all of the confusion on that. By losing that 3rd unit, that's where it comes from. We were up to, this should have been 151, and then we lost the 634. Oh, no. Yeah, that was 2 and 2. Okay. Yeah, so we would have been down to 149, but we raised another, and that's going to be, you know what, though? That would be, because we're paying these, this cost is for the year. So I think our reserve, because we paid the 9,000 to bring them up, we don't need to pay this. So I do think our reserve goes up to 128. I don't know that that extra 2,000 credits is going to make that big a difference, but I think that's much more accurate. So there you go, our first 4 years of the campaign. And when we sit down again, so we've lost a little bit here, but we're just on the cusp. Let me make a note here. I'm going to grab one more page before I forget that we have 10K gets energy weapons. And then I'll have to take a look and see if that costs us more now to equip groups as like a 10% surcharge, or because we spent the 10K to be able to build them, we just build our units at any cost. And the nice thing is that when we actually do some kind of combat with the barbarians, I'm going to leave that fairly abstract. I'm looking for a nice, easy, something along the lines of what we saw in remember Dungeons and Dragons, the rules compendium? Their mass battle system said, figure out, all of these little modifiers, roll a single percentile, and that will tell you who won, and you're good. I'd like something a little bit more granular than that, but I don't want to have to shove individual stands around in groups. So that's kind of where I'm at. We've already seen how the battalion. We didn't really, we haven't seen Hell and Fateful Decisions yet. We did see how the division level warfare works, and this is perfectly suited. Most of the combats are going to be on the battalion level, but again, it's a little too granular for me. I don't want to spend the whole episode working out the results of this battle. I want to know Who won? What were their losses? What do I have to replace? Who was captured? That kind of thing. There's only like 3 or 4 things I really need to understand. And for that, I'm on the hunt for a suitable abstract method of resolving those combats. And who knows? Maybe there's something in here. Research continues. Tune in next time. Figure out what we figured out. If you have any suggestions, hit me up. I could use them. Till next time, I'm praying for you.